Here is a third powerful lesson. Remember that virtually every time that Jesus had something important to say, he would speak in a parable. Here is perhaps the most important parable he ever told. Amongst other things, it tells us that God has virtually abandoned the earth, and if it hadn't been for Jesus, he almost certainly would have. It is called a parable of the landlord or landowner. There was a landowner who planted a vineyard. He put a wall around it, dug a wine press in it, and built a watchtower. Then he rented the vineyard to some farmers and went away on a journey. When the harvest time approached, he sent his servants to the tenants to collect his fruit, but the tenants seized his servants. They beat one, killed another, and stoned a third. Then he sent other servants to them, more than the first time, but the tenants treated them in the same way. Last of all, he sent his son to them. They will respect my son, he said. But when the tenants saw the son, they said to each other, "This is the heir. Come on, let's kill him and take his inheritance." So they took him and threw him out of the vineyard and killed him. So Jesus asked his listeners, when the owner of the vineyard comes back, what will he do to those tenants? The listeners replied, "He will bring those wretches to a wretched end, and he will rent the vineyard to other tenants, who will give him his share of the crop at harvest time." Who is the landowner? Answer, God. Where is the vineyard? Answer, the earth, and the work that we do in it. Who are the farmers, tenants? Every human being who has ever lived. Who are the servants? Every prophet, priest, king, scribe, or average human being who tells others about God, and in particular about the approaching harvest. Who is the Son? Well, no prizes for that answer. But the most important question of all is, why are we tenants? Or why is God the landlord and not, say, ruler, king, or even dictator? Because we don't own the land or the work done in it. The earth does not belong to us. And why does a landlord go away? Isn't this parable actually confirming what we feared all along? That there may be a God, but he or it has abandoned his creation, if it is a creation. Let's just read the whole parable again from a 21st century point of view, and then you might see how up to the minute this parable really is. There was a landlord who made the planet Earth. He put a wall of protection around it, with an atmosphere, other planets, stars, a sun, and eventually a whole galaxy. The Earth is kept safely in constant orbit by the watchtower of universal gravity. Then he rented out the Earth by evolving life forms from microscopic cells. This took millions of years to happen, so he went away to look after the rest of the universe. After many millions of years had passed, the Earth was overflowing with plants, trees, fish, birds, and all manner of animals, including intelligent life, called humans. He was quite pleased with what he had done, so he decided to send a couple of angels in the same appearance as humans, and tell everyone that they should stop worshipping sun gods, moon gods, rain gods, and materialism, and listen to what the real God had to say. But the humans were suspicious of strangers, so they ignored them and carried on as if nothing had happened. When the strangers kept insisting that they really had been sent from a real God, the people killed them. But the landlord was patient, and so he tried the human angle. He chose many and various good humans, such as Abraham, Moses, David, Elijah, Daniel, and many other prophets, so that they would pass on both good and bad news to everyone. The message was the same: stop worshipping other gods and worship the Creator God. But the same thing happened to them. The humans killed them and carried on with their evil ways as if nothing had happened. The landlord was still patient, so he decided to send somebody rather special. In the same way as he had started life from a single cell of life in the womb of the earth, many millions of years ago, he started a human life in the womb of a specially chosen human called Mary. But when this man had grown to an adult and began talking about himself and how he was sent to save the world, the humans put him to death as well. This time the landlord had had quite enough. He immediately raised his son to life again, because he had the power to do that, and took him back to heaven and disappeared to take care of the rest of the universe. The humans had been warned, and they would be given a limited time to sort things out on planet Earth, after which time the landlord's son will return and sort it out personally. He will destroy all evil people and set up a completely new world with new tenants. These new inhabitants will look after the world according to God's rules, and there will be a harvest every year for both themselves and for God. We are told from other scriptures that this new world will continue forever. This is now like a science fiction novel, but you'll need to ask yourself a couple of important questions. Why is this parable still relevant today, when it's nearly 2,000 years old? Why do all the facts fit into place, especially the ones about the landlord going away and the world being full of murders and war and descending into general chaos? And if we call it a prophecy, why has it all come true, apart from the very last part? Now ask yourself the most important question of all. Would you trust the person who told this story? If you do, then you can probably trust him when he talked about his own resurrection. Luke 16. If they do not listen to Moses and the prophets, they will not be convinced, even if someone rises from the dead. Matthew chapter 12. Then some of the Pharisees and teachers of the law said to him, "Teacher, we want to see a miraculous sign from you." He answered, "A wicked and adulterous generation asks for a miraculous sign, but none will be given it, except the sign of the prophet Jonah. For as Jonah was 3 days and 3 nights in the belly of a huge fish, so the Son of Man will be 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth. The men of Nineveh will stand up at the judgment with this generation and condemn it, for they repented at the preaching of Jonah, and now one greater than Jonah is here." Of course, this is not evidence that the resurrection happened, but at least it is a clue. Ask yourself the questions which are posed by these verses. Are you not convinced, even though someone may have risen from the dead? Are you looking for a miraculous sign, but wouldn't believe it, even if you saw it? Only you can answer these questions. You could actually argue that if you don't think that the resurrection happened, then these prophecies are about you. But for the purpose of this video, let's continue to be skeptical. After all, a prophecy about oneself could be self-fulfilling. For example, I could easily prophesy about myself that in a week's time, at some time on Thursday, I will be buying some fish fingers at the supermarket. So when Thursday comes around, there I am, in the supermarket. Although you must admit that Jesus' prophecy about himself was unduly ambitious, bordering on virtually impossible. For example, how was he supposed to raise himself from the dead? Jesus was supposed to have performed many miracles, healed many sick people, and even raised the dead to life. But this was surely one step too far. He was totally dependent on somebody else's miraculous power for doing that. He had faith in God to do the impossible. Notice what I just said then. Jesus had faith in God. Do you remember what I said in part 1 about faith and feedback from us? How we can never find the supernatural unless we're prepared to put in a lot of hard work searching for it. Well, it appears that this included Jesus as well. The general notion that Jesus had superpowers and was immune to all human failures is not found in Scripture. I think that Jesus was well aware of his own mortality, and probably more than most people would suspect. I repeat, the idea that Jesus thought of himself as different to everybody else is not supported by any of the 4 Gospel accounts. For example, there is no record of him ever calling himself the Son of God or the Messiah. Instead, he always referred to himself as the Son of Man, a human person, Son of Man. If he is called the Son of God or the Messiah, it is always from the lips of others, or the pen of the writer, never from himself. Here is one verse from many. Matthew 16. When Jesus came to the region of Caesarea Philippi, he asked his disciples, "Who do people say the Son of Man is?" They replied, "Some say John the Baptist, others say Elijah, and still others Jeremiah, or one of the prophets." "But what about you?" he asked. "Who do you say I am?" Peter answered, "You are the Christ, the Son of the living God." Jesus replied, "Blessed are you, Simon, son of Jonah, for this was not revealed to you by man, but by my Father in heaven.